Welcome back, guys. I'm Zell, and today we're talking about a Dozier. The Dozier Folding Hunter thumb notch version. So we have the K-Bar Dozier Designs Folding Hunter thumb notch version. And what we have is another of those right-sized EDC knives. Has Zytel handles, and it's only got 3 pieces of hardware going through all the way through the knife. We have a screw here, the pivot screw, and a pin. Makes this a very, very simple knife. It is a lock back. We don't have the Boyd detent or raised section in it, but what we do have is a knife that works extremely well. It's well centered. It doesn't have a choice. That blade fits down in there very tightly. So we look on this side, we have tip up carry only, left or right, and it's a fairly simple pocket clip, but it seems to work fine. And we also have our lanyard hole. Texturing, it's kind of a diamond shaped texturing, not quite like diamond plate, but very simple and very effective. And just like on your Spydercos, they have the clip going over the little K-bar there in the middle, so you can get the knife in and out of your pocket quite easily. And for our closed length, we're at about 4 1/4 inches and a very, very svelte 0.39 right here with a closed height of 1.3 inches. So pretty small knife. For some size comparison, we're right in there with a Spyderco Delica, and right in there, slightly bigger than a Zancudo. So pretty small and light knife, and definitely very thin. Moving on to our blade, with the thumb hole version, we get a blade length of just a tick under 3 inches and an edge length of about 2 3/4 inches. The blade is hollow ground, and it's pretty reasonable stock at 0.115, so fairly basic there. And the hollow grind is pretty high, allowing this knife to be a very, very effective slicer. It's a very good EDC blade, shape and design. It's just a standard drop point. It kind of has, with the hump here, kind of has that Spyderco appearance, but it's not. It is definitely a K-Bar design blade. And for our opening mechanism, it is a blade hole. They call it a thumb notch, but it's a blade hole, very similar to Spyderco, though it's not as high as Spyderco's. That's one of the differences in blade design here. If this was, well, we can lay it here next to a Delica, and we can see the blade height difference there. The Dozier is a little more low profile, which, you know, makes it better in the pocket, but also makes it a little harder to open and close. Now, once you get used to this thing, you could open and close it just as effectively as a Spyderco Delica. And our blade material is AUS 8A. Now, I haven't been able to find a lot of reputable information about the difference between AUS 8 and AUS 8A. What I can tell you from my experience with it is it's very, very similar. It sharpens up about the same as AUS 8. It seems to hold its edge about the same as AUS 8, maybe slightly better. But, you know, in the big ball of wax, it's about the same stuff. It's kind of like the difference between your 8CR13 and your 8CR14. Just not a lot of difference. And it works plenty well enough. I mean, it is an AUS 8. You're going to have to sharpen it more often than you would some other knives, but whenever we get to the price on this thing, you know, the price makes up for it. And at this point, we're going to throw up our pause and read card with all of your stats on it. And moving on along, our pivot is, I believe, I haven't taken this thing apart. I am not sure there's any bushings or anything in there. However, but it works very nicely. I mean, it's every bit as smooth as a Delica, out of the box anyhow. And just seems to work really, really well. And this blade fits so tightly down in here that there's no room for it to be off center. Now that does provide a problem. Our blade on this particular model is coated with some kind of coating, and I apologize, I didn't look up exactly the coating on it. But what I can tell you, and you can see right there, is because of the way the blade fits into the handle, it does wear. There's some wear on both sides of the blade, so if I were going to get one of these, I would not get a coated blade. And our lock mechanism is very simple. It's just a lock back, very much like many other mid-lock backs out there. Big difference here, and you know, I don't know that it makes that much difference. I have never had a lock back come unlocked on me from gripping the knife. However, the difference is this lock bar is straight across. Spyderco and many others use what's called a Boyd detent, I believe, and it's just a raised portion here so that whenever you grip the knife, there's not as much a chance of you unlocking the knife. Is it a big deal? I don't know. It's never affected me either way. I've used knives with and without it. Haven't had any problems. Moving on along to ergonomics. Now, get a look at that handle, guys. Not much to it. We've got a little bit of lip up here to keep you from riding up on the handle. A little bit of swell back here to give you something to hold on to. And that's really about it. You got a little bit of a thumb ramp here, but no jimping. And all in all, it's an effective handle. It does its job. Nothing fancy here, but it does do its job and does its job plenty well without the jimping and without any of the fancy finger choils or any of that. You know, and that's a good thing in your basic EDC knife. Something else to consider, I've had this knife for quite some time. I don't know, several months, maybe even a couple of years. I'm not even sure. It wears pretty darn well. It has been used a fair amount. I'm not going to say it's been used heavily by any means, but it has been used a fair amount, and about the only thing I've had to do with it is blow it out a few times because it is not flow through because of the lock back. And you know, I've given it a couple of drops of ballistol, and that's really about it, besides tightening the pivot here every once in a while. And here a while back I put a little bit of blue Loctite in that pivot, and that's all it needed. And a little note on Loctite. The question has been asked more than once. Loctite, L-O-C-K-T-I-T-E, is a brand name. It's also the generally accepted term for any thread locking compound. In general, there are 3 levels of thread locking compound. I believe I've never used the lowest level one, and I think it's green. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. And then there's blue. Normally, the blue Loctite or blue thread locking compound is your medium weight compound, and it is the stuff you want to use on knives. There is another compound that is red, generally red, and it is considered permanent. And that stuff is much more like using some super glue or welding something together. You can get it apart, but it takes application of heat or other things, a lot of torque to get those things to come apart. So whenever you're messing with knives, leave the red Loctite or red thread locker on the shelf somewhere. Don't even get it close to your knives. You know, I have my bottle up in the shop is labeled "Do Not Use." Now, does that mean I don't ever use it? Well, no, but it means that don't use this for general things. Well, guys, so there was the Dozier Folding Hunter thumb notch version here, or blade hole version, I think is a better way to say it, but they call it a thumb notch. Anyhow, this is a well-designed, very lightweight, right around 2.5 ounces knife that, you know, you can buy one of these. You can get your Delica at around $60 or so, and it's a wonderful knife. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. If you work in such a way that VG10 works for you, this is probably the best knife in this size category. You know, and there's other stuff out there, but the Delica is just kind of the stuff. But if you don't want to spend that $60 and you want something besides the 8CR13 that the Metal Arc II would have, or you're not much of a Spyderco fan, this Dozier is something to consider seriously. It is quite the little knife for 25 bucks or less, and if you watch, you can get this thing for under 20 bucks. And they do have a regular thumb stud version, which I think is the one that I would suggest. The thumb hole works okay, but if you have any other Spydercos in your rotation, it takes a few openings to get used to where that thumb hole lays. You know, and thumb studs are easy, very easy to find with your fingers. The only caveat I would have with that is some of the ones I've seen only have a thumb stud on one side. Now, if you're predominantly left or right-handed and you're never going to open it with your offhand, you know, that's fine. For me, that absolutely wouldn't work because I'd end up with it in my left hand and I'd be hunting for a thumb stud. But the bottom line here is, for around 20 bucks, it's going to be really, really hard to beat the Dozier Folding Hunter. It is just a wonderful, well-built little knife. Anyhow, guys, I really appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with me for a little while. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.